So hello again, and warm greetings on this beginning of the week. And we're continuing with the Satipatthana Sutta, the core Buddha's teachings on mindfulness practice. And this practice aims at developing a great clarity of awareness, awareness, a kind of a lucid awareness that's very stable and very simple, and allows it somehow in that clarity and simplicity, it sees things clearly in such a way that liberation is within reach. And so it's a state of mind that's settled, some would say concentrated, composed, very present and very clear, very attentive to the flow of experience in the present moment. And the text is all about the different exercises you can do to build up to that quality of clear attention in the present moment. And many of us here in the West have learned certain aspects of this text, especially the ones that emphasize simple mindfulness, non-reactive mindfulness, and simple recognition of what's happening as it's happening in the present moment. And sometimes we get the impression that's all we're allowed to do. But in this text, there's other practices to be done, or can be done, that contribute to developing the mind overall, so the mind can have the stability and strength to remain in the present moment and see clearly. And surprisingly, one of those things we develop is our capacity for imagination, or the word that we're talking about right now, pacha vekati, is can also mean to review, with the word view implying a kind of a seeing. So whether that reviewing is more mental consideration, thoughtful, brings something to mind, or whether it's evoking the imagination to visualize something, that depends on the individual practitioner. But in a variety of ways and situations, the Buddha kind of relies on or calls on very simple acts of imagination. He does that when he evokes metaphors for practice. And we'll see now in this next exercise, I like a beautiful metaphor. And somehow the evoking that what happens with it when we imagine a metaphor that speaks to something about what the meditation is going to be about, it kind of evokes those parts in our body, in our mind, in our hearts perhaps. So it comes a little bit of surprise that imagination has a role, partly because other places the Buddha clearly is critical of how we get caught in fantasy and false imaginations. But he uses a different word for that. And he has this word, a couple of words he uses that are more positive, that probably mean closer to visualize than simply imagination. And so this next exercise uses this. And so as a way of introducing it for the meditation today, I'd like us to engage in a simple act of imagination to support the meditation practice. So it's not to imagine anything that's not present. So you don't have to worry about being taken off on some journey someplace with imagination. But it is evoking the imagination to support being here. So taking a meditation posture, lowering the gaze, relaxing the eyes, relaxing the gaze. If it's comfortable, closing the eyes. And in a way that is comfortable for you, taking some deeper breaths, maybe 3/4 full. Exhaling no longer than you normally would, but not so long that it's a strain. delightful exhale. Letting the breathing return to normal. And hang out for a bit with the rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. And if it's easy, relaxing the body as you exhale. And then imagine yourself sitting in meditation. Maybe if you have an easy ability to visualize yourself sitting in meditation. It doesn't have to be exactly as you are, but in some way that the imagination, the visualization, the reflection has some nice feeling to it, nice quality. Maybe you might also imagine in your mind's eye, with your eyes closed, the place where you're sitting, letting your mind gently roam around left and right, up and down. Imagining, visualizing the location where you are. And then again, within your place, imagine yourself in your meditation posture. Imagine that your body is beginning to relax. Whether it actually relaxes or not is secondary to simply imagine. Maybe you remember a time when the body relaxed deeply, and you imagine that that's how you are now. Imagine in a relaxed way that you're safe, here and now, surrounded by these few minutes with safety. Imagine what it'd be like for your body to really feel itself in a safe place. What would relax in the body? And imagine what it'd be like if in this imaginary meditation session you felt content at ease. Imagine the breathing, what it would feel like to breathe and sit here, very contented, at ease with all things. Maybe visualizing yourself meditating this way. Imagining a feeling of contentment spreading through the body. Whether you're content or not is secondary to the imagination that you are. A gentle imagination. For people who have a hard time visualizing or imagining, imagine that you're visualizing. Imagine that you're imagining. So it's a very light touch. Imagining you're sitting here in your meditation posture, breathing in a content way. Imagining what that would feel like. And now, having spent some time imagining, let go of the imagination and let your awareness enter into your body as it actually is. Becoming aware of your embodied experience. As you exhale, calming the mind, calming the thinking. Centering your awareness on how your body experiences breathing. And as we come to the end of this sitting, notice if there's any ways that you are calmer, more peaceful, more settled from this meditation. Or if you're not, do you have more clarity about how you actually are? A simple recognition or a deep recognition. One way or the other, sitting quietly in your meditation posture, not moving. Notice how you are. And to whatever degree there's a sense of stability, or stillness, or non-reactivity to the world around you, imagine yourself being stable, non-reactive, not closing down. Imagining that the people of your life are coming into your view, that you bring to mind those people you might encounter today, whether they're strangers or acquaintances or friends or family, neighbors. And see if you can have them be present in the mind's eye while you are non-reactive, while you are stable and steady, maybe peaceful. Imagining that you offer a stable attention, a sense of presence, non-reactive presence. And from this place, this way, do you have access to any thoughts or imaginations how good it would be if these people could be happy, safe, content, peaceful, free? Imagine that's possible and wish that to them. May they be happy. May they be safe. May they be peaceful. May they be free. And may this goodwill, well-wishing for the world, spread out into the world through the day. And may each of us live for the benefit of this world. May all beings be happy. Thank you. So in this journey through the 13 exercises of the Buddha's discourse on the foundations for awareness, for mindfulness, we've come now to the fourth exercise, which is a mindfulness or a reflection on parts of the body. So all along we've been doing mindfulness of the body, developing a awareness that's embodied, being mindful of ourselves in postures, and being mindful of ourselves in specific activities we do. Now that focuses on bringing more specificity to this mindfulness of the body by becoming aware or mindful or focused on 31 different parts of the body. And the way that the verb that's used for what we do, the activity, is a kind of I think of it as a rich word with connotations that can mean to visualize, to see in the mind's eye. It could also mean to review or reflect on something, which has a double meaning in English as well, where the word view means to look, and the reflect has also the kind of the meaning of association with seeing, when we see our reflection in the water, for example, in the mirror. And exactly how the mind is engaged in considering this maybe depends on the person who does it. Some people have a very strong ability to visualize, and some people don't. Some people have strong ability to maybe conceptualize what's being discussed without actually seeing it. There have been times where I have done visualization practices, and I never really felt I was particularly good at it, being able to visualize, but it made a huge difference to me when I started imagining that I was visualizing. So visualizing itself is a use of the imagination, but somehow when I imagined I was doing it, then I was able to kind of get into the event, get into the ideas that are being, held up in the imagination. And it was also for me, it was much lighter touch because in the mind, because when I visualized, I found myself working too much. But when I was imagining myself visualizing, then there was no work in just imagining it. It was just kind of like more of an effortless place for me. And so exactly what this word reflect, review, imagine, visualize, how it should be interpreted is maybe very individual. And you're allowed to do that because this practice is about what supports you to develop clarity, stability, insight, and a certain freedom. And so what we're seeing here, though, is that the Satipatthana uses a variety of different mental capacities, all for the same purpose of this lucid awareness that's being developed. And so it's as we do it, we start learning these different capacities and recognizing in which situation different ones of them are useful. So to review some of the verbs that we talked about so far, one is to know, like know we're breathing. The other is to experience, to feel the whole body. And then there's to relax or calm the bodily constructions. And then there's to know the different postures we're in. And then there's to have full awareness or full comprehension while we're doing activities. So, and then also we talked about in the refrain the capacity to observe, to abide and observe. And now we're using a different mental capacity, that of reflection or visualization for something. Different people have different strengths in these different capacities, but they're all ways of engaging the mind. Now, the 32 parts of the body, actually 31 parts of the body, the text has 31. The later Buddhist tradition added the brain to the list, and so there's 32. but in the text it's only 31. And this is a cherished practice for new monastics, at least cherished by some. Often in Thailand, and I don't know about other countries, when often when a person is ordained as a monastic, this is the first practice they're given to cultivate this practice on they do the 32 parts of the body. And this has a variety of different functions. One is that you're supposed to memorize the list and be able to recite it kind of with ease. And there's something about the act of memorizing, doing the memorization and then reciting things from memory that engages the mind in a very nice way, or hopefully a nice way. There's something about the heightened attention that's needed to memorize something, the heightened presence that is beginning to train the mind or support the mind in having this a certain kind of heightened attention for breathing and for present moment experience. There's a kind of overlap between the kind of focused present moment attention needed for memorization and the kind of focused attention we need to practice mindfulness in the present moment. And by memorizing, we're learning something about a slightly activated mind or energized mind that doesn't have to be tense or stressed, but that shows us something about how to be present that's not too lackadaisical, not too complacent, or not too lazy, or something like that. A kind of clarity and intentness. When you memorize that, there's an intentness in what you're doing. So in memorizing the list, and for monastics, there's a lot of memorization, especially as a new monastics. And some of that is not just to memorize the text so you can chant them, but it's also training the mind, building up the strength of the mind um, that supports also mindfulness practice, this heightened capacity of lucid awareness. So the 31 parts of the body is engaging the mind in a way that helps it get concentrated. And concentration is a very important part of mindfulness practice overall. And so here we've kind of started with mindfulness of the body, and now we're introducing something that for many people supports them to get more concentrated and to take the 31 parts of the body meditation seriously, to develop that concentration so that when we continue with the Satipatthana, that we're supported by this more concentration. The second thing that it does is this 31 parts of the body meditation, we get a different orientation of how to experience our body than what we commonly do, kind of unconsciously, subconsciously carry around in our mind when we, because of our culture, advertisements, popular society, family experiences, we often have a self-image of ourselves in our body, which is biased, that's partial, that's only has, it's not kind of the full picture of what goes on. And not a few people have negative body self-images, that they're troubled by their body, or they're overly focused on their body, or they have positive views of their body and they're focusing on making themselves beautiful and just right. And so there's a whole focus on the body that is a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country, maybe around the world. Focus on the body that causes a lot of suffering, a lot of stress, and it doesn't really, and it supports a certain kind of attachment or clinging or grasping or fears, aversions. All kinds of things happen around how we view the body. And now this practice now is breaking through that to offer a separate way of experiencing the body that is maybe a little more concentrated, has a different orientation perspective on the body, and breaks up the solidity or the authority of these old body images that we're burdened with, or which get in the way of the mind settling deeply down into some the alternative way of being in the body from the inside out. The third thing these meditation on the 31 parts of the body does is that there's a way that they're said to be unclean, these parts of the body, or unpure. And if we focus on them, the theory is, if you focus on the body this way, that it breaks down not just the body image we have, but excessive attachment to the body. And the uh, and so for people who are very attached to the body, uh, uh, seeing it this way, these unclean things can break the attachment. And one way of understanding that the way that they're unclean, so a lot of people in the West are very resistant to this idea to see the body as impure or unclean. And in fact, many those who have seen the inside of the body, sometimes it seems quite beautiful to see the parts. Imagine that person that you cherish and love and everything, and you find their hair in your food, their pubic hair in your food, or their snot, or you find that their skin is sloughed off a lot and it's in the stew that they made, or fingernails are in food. I think for many people, the sense of like body parts are beginning to appear in my stew is a little bit like repulsive even. It's unclean. It's not quite right. You don't want to eat it, even though it's beautiful when it's on the other person. But something doesn't seem right about eating it if it's in the stew. And so it's maybe something like that. That there is some perspective that's not unhealthy. That if we're attached to the body, can help free it. It is using the imagination if it's needed for this purpose. So the 31 parts of the body, I'll give the list and then I'll post the list for you so you can have it. You can cut and paste it if you want. And some of you, I'd encourage you to memorize it, the list, and see if you can, learn about this heightened attention that is useful for mindfulness that comes from memorization. So head hair, body hair, nails, teeth and skin, flesh, tendons, bones, marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen and lungs, bile, phlegm, pus, blood and sweat, and fat, tears, oil, saliva, snot, fluid of the joints, and urine. So I think that, oh no, I left one out in the middle there. Intestines, large intestines, small intestines, contents of the stomach, and feces. So, sorry I didn't do it all in a list, but that's a list, and so that's the topic for the next 2, maybe 3 days, and we'll practice with it and explore it, and hopefully you'll understand how, rather than being a distraction from mindfulness, you begin appreciating the wealth and the richness, the range of how the mind is engaged, support the direction of the mind becoming lucidly aware and present, the movement towards freedom. So those of you inclined, memorize it, and it's memorization. This kind of memorization supports concentration and also supports the practice of it. Thank you, and